What are the things that make people realize they're not young anymore? Write in the comments what you think about this. Enjoy the show. Story 1. I'm only 24, but for me, the biggest sign I was aging was when I stopped recognizing modern slang. My teenage relatives explained what Riz was to me last Christmas. What was what it took for me to realize that I'm old now. Asterisk saying old in quotes because I'm far from actually old, just by the standards I had as a teenager, lol. Story 2. For context, I'm 24F. I was driving and I saw teenage tween girls walking to the grocery wearing the shortest shorts, and I said out loud to my boyfriend, "Those girls are practically babies. Why are they wearing those tiny ass shorts?" And then I realized, holy crap, I am old. I was once them, wearing the same exact outfits. My boyfriend even said, "You sound like your mom." And I immediately called my mom to tell her sorry for the outfits I used to wear at 12, 13, and that I was so old now. Story 3. Realizing. Most of your bodily pain is caused by sleeping just a little bit different than usual and waking up in pain most mornings instead of well-rested. And hell, even if you aren't waking up in pain, you still aren't well-rested for whatever unknown reason. Story 4. I stopped recognizing my own face in the mirror, like I knew it was me. And if I pause for a second, I see me. But for a split second, there's a disconnect that the person in the mirror is me. My face hasn't changed much, but it's definitely started to thin out, and I no longer have that plumpness of youth. Story 5. Realizing that I was locked into my life choices and that many doors were no longer open to me the way they were when I was young. I don't regret my life decision tree, but it was shocking to realize that I would never say, pack up and go teach English in South Korea like a carefree early 20-year-old could. Story 6. God, how long of a list do you want? Seeing a Facebook post from someone you know that literally at that moment 30 years ago, they were graduating high school and thinking that's ridiculous, then realizing they were your HS classmate and they are totally correct. Using Facebook, your little cousin who you remember being born has 2 school-age children. You realize that some of the YouTubers you watch, who are not in the first job of their lives, don't remember 9/11s. People graduating high school now were born in the 21st century. People entering kindergarten now will graduate from college around the time I hope to retire. Story 7. I've been noticing lately that if I eat too much sweets after 7:30 to 8 p.m., I'll wake up with aching joints in my fingers. Berry crumble, ice cream, heavenly hunks from Costco. Inflammation is real, y'all. Sugar, dairy, gluten sensitivities are slowly ramping up. Story 8. When everything, and I do mean everything, including your back, neck, knees, fingers, shoulders, etc., starts hurting, no matter how much you take it easy or how many yoga poses you can do. You start reminiscing about when a 2-ounce king-size candy bar only cost you 79 siwa. Meanwhile, a 1-bedroom apartment is currently going for $1,100 a month. When flirting back at the cute waitress who was obviously flirting with you gets you disapproving stares from every table around you. When harmless, benign comments, jokes you used to make now gets people in your face, screaming at you that you're a POS and that what you just said is not socially acceptable. Joke's on them, though. In 20 years, they'll get people in their face doing the same LOL. When you go to buy alcohol and they don't even bother to look at your ID when they scan it, and that's even if they ask for it to begin with LOL. When you start reading the back of cereal boxes, not because of the interesting flavors, but to check the fiber content. Oh, and another one being when a recruiter walks by and they don't even give you so much as a sideways glance when 15 years ago, you couldn't even go 15 minutes without some branch official trying to recruit you. Story 9. Physical activities are definitely not the same. Any type of stress to the body takes longer for recovery. Mobility, flexibility, and endurance are decreased. You can't push the body as hard as you want. Energy levels also tend to take a dip. Story 10. I remember when there were no cell phones, tablets, MP3 players, or streaming. I'm over the age of 50. When I'm on YouTube doing those surveys, most people are under the age of 20 to 30. Millennials. Oh, when the metabolic rate slows down, you know you aren't young no more. Story 11. I'm a boomer, but I always thought that I am pretty up to date on technology. Got a new phone with Face ID and ran into a bit of trouble when I tried to use it for the first time at the checkout. The kid at the register kindly offered to help me with it. That tone of voice, that pitiful look. Story 12. Well, when I was talking to this girl and I mentioned that when I shave, it makes me look way younger, and she said, "So what, you'll look 30? Talking to the same girl and telling her about my previous jobs doing telemarketing, selling vacation packages to people's landlines. She goes, "Landlines?" Seeing people dancing at the clubs and finding out they are the same age as my nephews, who I will always see as being innocent little kids that I raised. Also, when people bring up different streamers, YouTubers, trends, it's tough to keep up. I work in substance abuse treatment and interact with a lot of young people who are both simultaneously grown for their age because of the nature of the disease of addiction, bringing on wildlife experiences, trauma that will mature people in some areas, while they are also clearly still kids in others. Needless to say, I show my age a lot lol then again. I'm only 33, and still not ready to consider myself old, since life has gotten much better in my early 30s than they were in my 20s. A story 13. Realizing how young people in their 20s can be stupid with narrow mind or doing very poor choices for themselves, and realizing that I did the same things for which I pay now the price. Realizing that these 20s we think are adult age look like now to an extension of teenagehood. Story 14. When you hear really bad takes on a major events that occurred, that you think everyone lived through, and you realize these adults have only seen videos about it or studied one perspective in school, whether it be 9/11s or Princess Diana's death or from a cultural perspective, even the fact that lots of 80s/90s songs were written sarcastically/ironically/tongue-in-cheek, and young and not so young people think the songs were genuinely ignorant or innocent because they don't know the context. Story 15. I was being called sir when I was 20, so guess I always looked old. The first real sign was joint pain when on a long hike when I was 32. I was so happy to finally make it back to the car hotel. My feet, knees, and back were just done. Where before I was just sad because I wanted to keep going, but the sun was setting. Story 16. How fashion is cyclical. The other day I was looking for jeans to buy, and so many of them were low-rise. Low-rise jeans just remind me of middle school and would look silly on me. I just want some nice, practical mid-rise jeans. Then I was reminded of my mother in the early 00s having the same problem. I felt so old. Story 17. I always thought I'd be a cool senior, gaming in the senior care facility when I'm in my 80s or 90s. But I don't know how Instagram works when someone talks about their Instagram. I understand the Facebook part of sharing photos and what you did, etc. But what's the point of those temporary videos? And why do you have to go to a different spot to view them? And why are there so many different types of ways to interact/communicate? Edit. I'm 29. Story 18. When I sit down, it sounds like someone dropped a bag of rocks. When I stand up, it sounds like someone picked up a heavy bag of rocks. I remember asking my grandfather why he didn't want to, wondering why he always declined. Now I'm my grandfather's age and I 100% understand. Story 19. Here in Canada, Canada's Wonderland announced they're building a new roller coaster. Not only did I have zero interest in it, but I realized the reason is because I'd probably just end up having back pain for days if I did ride it, or any other large roller coaster. I also realized it's been over a decade since I've even stepped into an amusement park. Story 20. How about when you get that look from your doctor? I was there not too long ago, and the way too young-looking resident doctor was assessing me about what I'll keep to myself, thank you. And then he repeated something we discussed to the supervising doctor. They looked at each other, then the doctor turned and looked at me. That look over his glasses, stern, not surprised but disappointed, like I should know better. It was 1,000 looks and all the words he wanted to say to me. I knew in that moment every ache, pain, and whatever was wrong with me was either highly likely my fault or just cause I'm getting old. Story 21. Being passionate about local infrastructure projects. I stopped my family walking through the mall on Saturday to look at the booth the city set up to show their plans for the new western part of the Valley Line expansion of the LRT. I was very excited, my daughter not so much. We had a laugh about going full dad, LOL. Edit added the bit about the LRT. Story 22. I was an adult when all of my nieces and nephews were born. They are now entering middle high school. I was a working adult with a house when my boss had his 4th child, who's now entering high school. So yay, people you know who have kids can quickly age you as they reach milestones you have memory of. And those milestones are ones you associate with them reaching adulthood. If they are near to being adults, and you were there when they came to life, it makes you feel real old. Story 23. My friend, 28M, asked me if I wanted to play ball at the park. I told him it wasn't going to happen because I don't play on concrete anymore. Fast forward, he goes to the park and was playing some light 1v1 before the run started. This man got a stop and cleared the ball. As he makes his move to the basket, the man tore his Achilles tendon. Story 24. My last name is Barker. In a lifelong effort to not be mislabeled Baker or Parker, I've always stated my last name is Barker, with a B as in Bob, unfortunately no relation, and we'd share a chuckle or state our affinity for good old Bob. A few years ago, I finally got my first "Who's that?" from a young coworker, and I swear I could physically feel the gray hair start growing out of my head in that moment, lol. Story 25. Big ones for me have been having to wake up to pee pretty much every day, hearing music from high school on the oldies station. I came to you for the Beach Boys. Why are you playing Green Day? My baby sister has a husband and children. My knee just falls out of place sometimes. When did I get permanent rinks? Story 26. When it becomes increasingly different to tell the difference between trendy people and homeless people. When you see a flyer for a club night and aren't sure which is the artist and which is the venue. When you go to the doctor and the GP is younger than you. Story 27. When you realize that you're older than actors were when they made the movies you liked as a kid. I'm in my 40s now. Catherine O'Hara was 36 when she was in the first Home Alone. Dan Aykroyd was 32 when he was in the first Ghostbusters, yet even now they still seem older than me. Story 28. Me, F59, realizing that the average age women die is 83. That's only 24 years from now. Seeing a profile picture and see my turtleneck. Seeing a doctor who has tattoos and looks like he's 19 years old. Looking at movies and not knowing anyone. Forgetting things. Blending in at a place with almost only elderly people. Story 29. Everyone holds the door for me when I'm not delivering too. Or asks me if I need help. I'm a delivery driver. All the senior ladies admiring my lilac-colored hair. My whole body aches with arthritis. I love my bed. I love sleeping. I love not drinking alcohol and not having headaches the next morning. I love watching birds and being in nature when I didn't so much before, although have always loved birds. Being way too sensible. The list goes on. Story 30. When I was young and I got a new computer device, it was an exciting experience of discovery and learning. Now it's like, God fucking damn it, how do I change the settings back to the way I like them? And why did they change this? Story 31. The worst part about aging for me so far is that injuries that would have healed very quickly when I was younger take a lot longer now. In college, my friends and I filmed a goofy zombie movie where I rolled out of cars, jumped off the roofs of houses, and got tackled. I got some bruises and scratches, but nothing that didn't heal in the next day or two. The other day, I fell out of my bed and my back still hurts. Story 32. I went to have my eyes checked. My regular ophthalmologist was on vacation, so I had a younger female doctor as his sub. We do the eye chart on the wall exam, and she tells me the results. Something fires off in my memory banks, and I say, wait, that's better than last time? I didn't think vision could improve? She replies, oh yes, that can happen. It's typical in patients who are about to need bifocals. So I head home and self-depreciatingly relate this conversation to herself, who promptly startles me by screaming, no! I say, what's your problem? I'm the one who's going to need bifocals. Herself responds, that means you're getting old, which means I'm getting old. Story 33. I went shopping for a 4-slot toaster a couple years ago. That was when I knew. You see, a week or so before we had my in-laws over, I'd made eggs and bacon for breakfast. It was getting to plating time, and I put the first 2 pieces of toast down. They weren't going to be ready in time. Everything was going to get cold by the time I put 4 sets into my juvenile toaster. That's when I became an adult. Story 34. I went to a concert a couple months back. A pretty heavy metal band, The Ghost Inside, that I'd liked since high school, 2010-ish. The majority of the crowd was around 40 years old, some in their 30s. When I started seeing some of my favorite bands live, a lot of the time the oldest person there looked 30. Sure did put things into perspective. Story 35. When I was young, I felt I could do anything and could bounce back from anything I put my body through. About 9 months ago, I stood up and put a bucket handle tear in my left meniscus. Last week, I stood up and ripped my right meniscus. Going from invincible to unable to stand without requiring a surgery is definitely my sign. Story 36. Thinking that the music today really sucks, and the best music was in the 90s. And this is exactly what my mom said to me in the 90s when she would talk about 60s music. Is the music really bad today, or clearly am I just getting old? Story 37. Waiting in the line at the pharmacy and seeing people you think are your peers age-wise. Give the pharmacist birthdays that start with 2000-something. When they started playing the music of my youth on classic rock radio. Story 38. Not understanding the slang the kids use. I'm only 25, and I remember being in high school and in middle school before and saying Gen Z slang like sus or bet or and I oop and thinking, there's no way people in their 20s don't understand this, it's so obvious. But now literally I hear skiddaby toilet riz and I get an aneurysm. Story 39, scrolling through Instagram, and there are posts like, can you believe this character is 15 years old already? And you were already an adult at that point. Not even a fresh adult, but an adult for a few years already at least. You considered that a kind of new movie. Story 40. At 35, I could afford a quality gym membership with great amenities located conveniently on my way to and from work. I was excited and motivated to get back into shape and have a workout routine. Until I realized I had developed joint pains that made certain core exercises very painful. I start physical therapy this week and I'm feeling my age. Story 41. Every time I get up, my back reminds me that I'm not young anymore by sending shooting pain up and down my spine. I need surgery for this. I'm avoiding it until I can't stand it anymore. My right shoulder is incredibly accurate about predicting the weather. If I move it certain ways, I get shooting pain. I need surgery for this. I'm avoiding it until I can't stand it anymore. I now need glasses for close-up work. I estimate in another 2-3 years I'll need them to read. The manager of the team I work with every day is 2 years older than my eldest child. He was born after I graduated college. I don't feel old yet, but things are happening to tell me that yes, I am starting to get along in years. I turned 46 this month. Story 42. You realize you're not young anymore when your back has more complaints than your Twitter feed. Staying up past 10 p.m. feels like a rebellious act, and the new fashion trends are just the questionable styles you wore in high school. Also, when you find yourself saying they don't make them like they used to about literally everything, including phones, music, and even candy bars. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked the video, like it. Be sure to write comments and share your stories.